A group of teenagers had come together after having met on the game platform Roblox. They shared similar interests, political values, and idolized the same figureheads like Adolf Hitler and American neo-Nazi James Mason. The reasoning for their get-together was far from positive, however. They had formed their own cult, using the gaming platform as their foundation and method for recruitment. But what had initially started as a joke would quickly turn into something much, much more sinister. What's the first thought that comes to mind when I say the word Roblox? It's probably the bright-colored obstacle courses, or even the timer ticking down as you put your outfit together, undressed to impress. But what if I told you there's a whole different world, one much darker, that sits deep inside this very same platform? And it all begins here, in what's known as NUSA. It's a simulation of the United States government. Players are able to run for office and even create their own political parties inside the game. It's actually kinda cool and really detailed. It almost mirrors the real-life political system. Anyways, a user would also find this to be pretty cool. But instead of running for a position in the Roblox government, he would create his own political party, and it would be known as the American Valkist Party. The leader of this party, we're gonna call him James for now. The reason I'm keeping him anonymous is because he surprisingly agreed to speak with me. He was a teenager when he created the American Valkist Party. He was still in high school. This was around when COVID was starting up and lockdowns were happening. James had described himself around this time to be an edgy kid and nothing to really do. He thought that running a fascist political party in Roblox would be fun and harmless for the most part. It was all LARP. That's what it was. If you don't know, LARP stands for Live Action Roleplay. At least, that's what it was at first. It was harmless Roblox LARP. But it would quickly turn into something much more sinister. This Roblox political party was separated into 3 separate cliques, each having an important story to tell for this video. The first one I'll go over, and where this rabbit hole begins, is of course James and his close circle of Valkist loyalists. Underneath them are 2 other cliques, the classical fascist led by a user named Seamus, and what's known as the Patriot Imperium. I'm not sure if they had an established leader at the time, but a known figurehead in the group was someone named Roy. The American Valkist Party was gaining a lot of attention, and the elections were coming up. In order to win the election in this Roblox political world, you simply needed to get the majority vote. And even though the Valkists were gaining popularity, they were still far behind the popular Democrat and Republican parties. So they would have to ramp up their efforts. In an attempt to skyrocket their reach on the platform, the classical fascists, led by Seamus, would come together to craft the fundamentals of the group, which included a manifesto. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to recover the full manifesto, but I did find these screenshots, which give us a glimpse into the inner workings of this faction. It's important to note that majority of the media content, including these screenshots, were documented on the website known as Do Not Research. The purpose of this website is to, quote, document internet culture, and somehow the Valkist Party had ended up on their radar. They published a pretty detailed insight into the Valkist Party and their ideology. So if you're interested in learning a bit more, I put a link to this article, along with the rest of relevant sources in a Google Doc, which I put a link to in the description. Let's get back to the manifesto. The manifesto is approximately 11 pages long, and it details the intentions and ideology of the American Valkist Party. They describe themselves as neither left or right-leaning, but instead on their own path, the third path. The rest of this manifesto is fairly tame, and not super important to highlight for this video. It's all basically just roleplay stuff. Policies and plans they hope to implement if elected by their fellow Robloxians. This was their attempt at professionalism, to be taken seriously by the voters in NUSA. Of course, writing out manifestos, or any documentation in general, is not exactly a great way to grab the attention of the masses. In fact, there's an even more effective method of attention grabbing: rallies. The Patriot Imperium clique would be majority responsible for in-game events and rallies for the party. But before I can even get into these rallies, we have to answer an important question. What is the Patriot Imperium? The Patriot Imperium, or PI for short, was founded in 2018, 2 years before the American Valkist Party. They were known as a raiding group, joining games on Roblox and causing as much chaos as possible. They would do this using exploits and their manpower to take over entire servers for extended periods of time. They frequently dressed in Nazi Germany-inspired attire, and most notably, the skull balaclava. The Patriot Imperium had joined the American Valkist Party, possibly because they were the most far-right party in the NUSA game. They had hoped to be able to win the elections and cement their influence in the largest political experiment on the platform. So they got to work, organizing rallies and marches in Roblox's Washington, D.C. This would greatly help with the Valkist Party's outreach, but there was now a massive problem underway inside of the party itself. The cliques were not getting along. The classical fascists were not very fond of the Patriot Imperium. Their ideologies directly clashed. Seamus had believed that Nazis were not to be associated with fascists, and that they were two different things. The Patriot Imperium, however, believed in the opposite, that Nazism is a core value of fascism. James was now faced with a difficult decision. He had to remove one of the cliques before they dragged the entire party into a civil war. And the choice actually wasn't that difficult to make, at all. A user known as AuroraJake09 was responsible for the peacekeeping and the persecution of crime in the Roblox USA. The Patriot Imperium, although they had boosted their popularity through rallies and in-game events, they had also smeared their reputation due to their excessive racism and ill manners, and pretty swiftly, they had entered the radar of Aurora Jake, and he began to ban them one by one. The Imperium wasn't very happy. They were actively being barred from a game they had spent so much time recruiting from, so they would rally in custom merchandise in the Washington, D.C. game. On one of the shirts they wore, at least that I could find, simply had the text, "Kill Aurora Jake 09, plastered on the front. They even went to their YouTube channel and posted some pretty schizo things about the guy as well. James would, understandably, push the Patriot Imperium out of the American Valkist Party, not knowing he had just extended the majority of influence to the classical fascists. The election was now underway, and players were in-game putting in their votes. This was the moment of truth, and we are about to find out just how much the public endorsed the idea of an American fascist party. The results are in, and to be honest, it's not looking good for the Valkist Party. They had only received 14% of the vote, which isn't that bad for a third party, but they still lost the election. In fact, they had miscalculated the public's opinion of fascism. Everything had seemingly fallen apart so quickly, but the Valkist Party was not ready to give up so easily. Seamus and the classical fascists would take the reins of the party, crafting and implementing a new manifesto. This new manifesto was 20 pages long, 9 pages longer compared to the now defunct manifesto. This new document was odd. It felt like they were no longer talking about Roblox. It felt like they were no longer role-playing. It went on and on about our modern world and its flaws, and it called for a radical restructuring of society. This was a bit odd. I've rarely seen someone so dedicated to crafting a manifesto, especially a 20-page document, for a roleplay group. There was some different intention here for sure. On top of this document that Seamus had created, a military legion nicknamed the Black Shirts were formed. The Black Shirts were historically a real thing, most notably under Benito Mussolini or Oswald Mosley of the British Union of Fascists. They were responsible for the elimination of political opponents and clamping down on rebellion. It's almost like they were preparing for war, and that's almost exactly what they would get. I've talked a lot about fascist and far-right groups on the platform, but let's go to the opposite side of the political compass for just a moment, the far left. There was a faction created in 2019, known as the Fifth International. It was an anti-fascist communist community, created to counter Nazism on the platform. According to their own wiki, they use methods such as leveraging moderation, organizing harassment campaigns, and infiltrating high-ranking positions within groups to take down fascist communities on Roblox. The Fifth International became aware of the Patriot Imperium in 2019, and they were determined to destroy the group and its collaborators. They were initially very successful. They had gotten around 40 of their accounts banned, 20 of their groups, and some of their Discord servers banned. But when the Patriot Imperium joined the American Valkist Party, it had become more difficult to counter their influence, and now the Fifth International had a bigger target to destroy. After the Patriot Imperium was kicked out of the party, it had opened up an opportunity for the anti-fascists. The Valkist Party was set to be eliminated. the Fifth International began their efforts as usual, by mass reporting their groups and accounts on Roblox. James's account was terminated, along with the Valkist Party Roblox group. Their Discord was raided and they were harassed, and eventually, because of the drama and chaos that was unfolding, the NUSA game was pressured to ban James and his Valkist Party from ever running again. In an instant, everything was gone. Everything they had built to this point had fallen apart. James would leave the platform entirely, saddened by the collapse of his project. But this wasn't the end of CMIS, or even the Patriot Imperium. In fact, this was only just the beginning of something much, much more disturbing. The Patriot Imperium is extremely difficult to understand. They have done a relatively pretty good job at staying hidden, and they go by many different aliases, which subsequently makes it harder to dig up information on them. But here's what we know. Before the Patriot Imperium found themselves inside of the Valkist Party, they were part of a completely different political faction, the KKK. Of course, this didn't last very long. This community was terminated, and the Imperium found themselves retreating to the Valkist Party. They often assimilated into already established communities, possibly as a way to continue to operate behind closed curtains, and to provide a scapegoat if they were compromised. However, following the collapse of the American Valkist Party, the Patriot Imperium became something more than a clique. They had centralized under the leadership of Roy. They had become stronger than ever before, and they were more than ready to launch a campaign of revenge against their enemies. But before we can get into that, we have to understand the ideology and symbolism of the Patriot Imperium. James Mason, a self-proclaimed neo-Nazi, or as some people know him, the godfather of fascist terrorism. He's mostly known for writing the book titled Siege. According to him, the book is a tool and a guide for those wanting a radical shift in the world's politics. It calls for terror attacks on infrastructure and against racial minorities. Mason's Siege book is arguably very extreme, rivaling the extremism in Hitler's Mein Kampf. But for whatever reason, the text had spoken to a large number of people, most notably the terrorist network known as the Atomwaffen Division. Brandon Russell founded the Atomwaffen Division in 2015, directly inspired by Mason's Siege agenda. They believe that they must cause as much chaos as possible in order to instigate a nationwide shift in politics. This included the destruction of water lines and power grids, attacking racial minorities and gay people. They wanted to somehow overthrow the United States government, using their terror attacks as a way to pressure the current administration. The Atomwaffen Division is directly linked to 8 deaths, kidnapping, and that's only just to name a few. The Patriot Imperium was inspired by both the Atomwaffen Division and the so-called Siege culture. Their flags and emblems were almost direct copies of the Atomwaffen. They practiced the teachings of Siege in Roblox, exploiting in games, bypassing the chat filter to spew out racial slurs, and causing as much chaos as they could in-game. They were known to target games such as The Hood and various World War II role-playing games. They were actively recruiting people into their ranks and teaching them the ways of neo-Nazi terrorism. And their efforts were not only limited to Roblox. Members would meet in real life. I couldn't find much of any details on these meetings, but it's clear that they took some sort of action. Graffiti inside of a sewer, boasting the Patriot Imperium name, along with a link to their Roblox group. But who was the leader behind this Roblox terror cell? Well, thanks to his own members betraying him for unknown reasons, he was doxxed, and the Patriot Imperium's leader was unveiled for the first time ever. I'm not going to share his personal details for obvious reasons. Just know that they pretty much leaked everything. The person behind the docs stated that the Patriot Imperium was operating behind closed doors, until one of their own members betrayed the Imperium and handed over all of Roy's information to, quote, anti-fascists, who I believe were members of the Fifth International. I briefly spoke with a previous member of the anti-fascist group, and he had told me it was true, that with the help of one of Roy's fellow group members, the Fifth International were able to leak his identity. Roy's mother was sent multiple emails, outlining his actions online and his connections to the Patriot Imperium. He was subsequently grounded, and was forced to spend less time in the Imperium. This is according to a YouTube comment left on one of their many broadcasting YouTube channels. That's what they call them anyways. But I'll get back to these YouTube channels in just a moment. They might even help us unravel the true intentions behind this community. The Patriot Imperium was divided. Even though they held similar values, they often disagreed with one another. Activity was dwindling, and other figureheads were clinging for power. The main character, which I'm going to focus on, is a user named Infantry Martyrdom. Well, that's actually his first username. He was banned on Roblox previously for some questionable assets he had uploaded. His most recent username is Serotonin. He would lead the remnants of the Patriot Imperium onto a new path, one that was more public and even more destructive. The Patriot Imperium would go on to a new campaign of recruitment and mobilization. They were very vocal on Twitter. I was able to find around 20 accounts that are still up that shared imagery and content from the group. One of these accounts shared imagery from a game they were producing on Roblox. It was titled Angry Goy. I mean, look for yourself, it's pretty crazy. I'm not sure how they were able to bypass moderation to even include the assets, but I mean, there it is. I wasn't able to find a game link or anything, so I'm assuming Roblox eventually took action, but it's still pretty crazy. One of these Twitter accounts that I found would prove to be more important compared to the rest. It was the Twitter account of none other than Serotonin himself, a supposed leader in the Patriot Imperium. He goes by the username LopBop. Pretty strange. And his profile picture is strange as well. When reverse image searching it, it seems like an AI-generated image of an Asian man. I'm not sure what this means, to be honest. It's probably nothing. His location is interesting, however. It's set to the Cambodian Genocide Museum. Serotonin, along with the Patriot Imperium, had a very strange fascination for one of the most disturbing leaders in modern history, Pol Pot. He is mostly known for his involvement in the Cambodian genocide. I'm not sure what's the reason for their gravitation towards this historical dictator, but it's almost like they worshipped him, alongside the Imperium's growing figurehead, Serotonin. I found a screenshot, featured on the Imperium's YouTube channel, of a book titled The Lop-Bopian Bible, which is Serotonin's Twitter username. It features a picture of Pol Pot and a swastika, along with text that reads, "Words from the Prophet." I'm not sure what to make of it, to be honest. I couldn't really find any info about the supposed book anywhere. So it's hard to say what this could mean, but there's something that has definitely been made clear at this point. These people were inspired by some of the most disturbing and dangerous figureheads in history. The Patriot Imperium continued their almost daily game raids, joining games and causing as much chaos as possible. One of these games were featured in a popular Roblox YouTuber Flamingo's video. It's called Fembies, and from the looks of it, it's a femboy, furry-themed restaurant. I'm not exactly sure the purpose of it, but it's rated mature on Roblox at the moment. Anyways, a few members of the Imperium would find themselves in Fembies, trolling and raiding as they usually do, and as a result, they were banned from the game. This was normal for them at this point though, and it wasn't anything new. But they were deeply enraged by this for some reason, even more than ever before, possibly because of the homosexual theme that this game and its members had encapsulated. I've even heard whispers that this game was harboring pedophiles and had a hypersexual player base, but I wasn't able to confirm this. Regardless, they would track down the staff members on Fembies who had banned them, and engage in a long campaign of harassment. They had officially declared a state of war in the Patriot Imperium, a war that you might have indirectly heard about, but not in a way you would think. What I'm about to discuss is a conclusion that I myself have come up with. It has not been proven in a court of law, and is based on my opinion, facts, confessions from Imperium members, and a web of connections that is way too damning to ignore. RDC 2023. If you don't know what that is, it's a yearly award show for Roblox games and content creators. It's like the Grammys, but for Roblox. But in 2023, as a lot of people in the community know, a lot of chaotic stuff had happened, and the event itself had to be cancelled. The reason for this is simple. There was a threat posted on Twitter. A user named Vindict posted a tweet stating, "Today I will be taking action against Roblox Nazis and racists. I am sick whenever I play games, furries, queer folk, and innocent people get trolled and doxxed. Roblox does nothing about this." Along this, they posted an image of a firearm and the caption, "I will be seeing you soon, RDC, and good luck to everyone there." Understandably, Roblox would come forward and cancel the event due to safety concerns. But who was this person? And what is the real motive behind this threat? What's interesting is this person is not who they say they are. In fact, they are impersonating somebody who goes by a similar username, Vindiction. Vindiction had posted on Twitter that they were being impersonated, stating, "It makes me feel physically ill that my name and username had to be used in such a disgusting way." But who was impersonating this person? What motivation could they have possibly had for this? I believe it could be someone you are deeply familiar with as of watching this video. Another tweet by Vindiction reveals a possible motive for their impersonation. The reason they impersonated me is because I banned them from Femby's restaurant 3 years ago. Does that sound familiar? I believe the Patriot Imperium could have been responsible for the impersonation and the threats against the RDC 2023 event. And don't worry, I have plenty of more evidence. Let's go over all of it now. Let's start with some of the more damning connections. There is the tweet that Vindiction had made, which confirms it was a troll they had met on Femby's that had impersonated them. I even talked to a previous close friend of Vindiction, who had confirmed this. I actually spoke to Vindiction as well, who clued me into some interesting details. Here's what they both told me. It was a group of people behind the impersonation and the threat, operating mostly on Telegram. The harassment from this group of people had started years before 2023, after they were banned from the Femby's Roblox game. They don't exactly remember the usernames of the people who were behind the harassment, but there is one username that really stuck out to them: Marcus. I quickly began to dig through all the media I had of the Patriot Imperium, looking for a Marcus, and lo and behold, I found him. Marcus Rockwell was his full username. I cross-verified this, and it was confirmed to be the username they remember. So now we have a confirmed member of the Patriot Imperium, who was verified by the victims themselves to be the suspect. But who was running the impersonator account? Was it Marcus? I think it was Serotonin. The RDC event was cancelled on September 9th of 2023, and 2 months earlier, Serotonin made a post to his Twitter account stating, instead of working at Femby's and participating in the degeneracy, remember the memory of Angkar's Express. Angkar is a direct reference to the Communist Party of Cambodia, under Pol Pot. Again with this obsession. They also had directly mentioned and called out the friend of Vindiction I had mentioned earlier, along with Alaskan Reality, who's a former Roblox YouTuber. The impersonation account had also called out Alaskan Reality. Another similar personality trait, and possibly even an intentional clue left behind by Serotonin, is this. The impersonation account had tweeted twice after their account anniversary. You don't really see this much on Twitter, I mean at least I haven't, and you know who else tweets about their account anniversary? Serotonin. This could be a very strange coincidence, but maybe we'll never know. The day after the threat was posted and RDC was cancelled, Serotonin posted to his Twitter account stating, "The tally marks of Patriot Imperium accumulate." The only tweets remaining on the Vindict account are callouts to YouTubers, putting the blame on them to try and garner more attention. There's a Kamala Harris meme and, of course, the Twitter anniversary posts. I truly believe he is behind this account. There's way too many connections to ignore, and if it isn't him, it's definitely someone from the Patriot Imperium. But there's an even more damning connection that puts the final nail in this coffin. I spoke to Marcus Rockwell, and at first he was just lying to me, claiming he knew nothing about the events that transpired, but eventually he slipped up, and he pretty much admitted everything.
Taro was my friend, he just helped me with the artistic stuff, and what happened is, I put out a call out on the 764 Telegram. It wasn't a 764, it was just like something like that. It wasn't the 764 Telegram, because it was gone at the time, I'm pretty sure. But it was like some weird calm Telegram. I don't know, it was so many of them, I don't even remember. I don't like to think about it, because it's pretty bad. And put out a call out, and then some, like, wacko made a post that did it, because apparently they were already planning this in the past. They were already planning to get RDC shut down, so they chose her, I assume. And I got somebody to, I didn't get them to post it, but they did it in my name, and I'm like, fuck. And I like freaked out, and that's all that happened. I don't remember anything after that. I just tried to cover up, and I left everything.
He confirmed my suspicions, and I'm 99% sure, maybe even a little bit more than 99%, that they were behind this dangerous and senseless act. But what do you think? I'm genuinely curious. I'm not really a trained investigator or anything, I just think there's way too many connections to ignore. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this. It would be super awesome to just hear more opinions on this. As of today, it's unclear if the Patriot Imperium is still active and running, at least on Roblox. They seem to be focused on expanding in the real world. They often meet up in real life from a chill gathering at an anime expo, wielding knives in front of what looks like to be an EU embassy building. There's also a picture of a custom-made PI patch, taken in front of someone's house they had previously doxed. Seamus from the American Valkist party had also moved on to real life. He had attempted to create a real-life American fascist party. He had a pretty decent following, and they had organized some rallies here and there. But it's unclear if he is still attempting to run for office as of today. As for James, like I mentioned before, he had moved on. He grew up, and he no longer believes in or partakes in any of the extremist values. Let's talk about the reality, the cause, the implications that this all has. From this point forward in this video, I'm going to be expressing my own personal opinion. To those who have watched this channel before, I'm sure you've noticed that the past few videos have been mostly about extremism and dangerous people. I've seen the comments calling me a libtard and asking about the seriousness of the content. And the reality of this is not right or left. This is about the radicalization of children, putting negative thoughts, negative ideas into the heads of children. No matter what side of the political spectrum you consider yourself to be on, or whatever you want to label me as, you have to agree that Nazism as an ideology is only negative, and it only ruins lives. It's an ideology built off the hatred for others and the lack of self-accountability. The majority of people involved in these groups whom I've talked to have all told me the same thing. They got into this stuff when they were 10 to 13 years old. They were indoctrinated at such a vulnerable age. They were told that the world was out to get them, and that the teachings of Adolf Hitler or James Mason are the only ways to protect yourself. To any members of the Patriot Imperium or any online extremist group watching this video, I have no hatred towards you. I'm hoping this video can serve as a wake-up call, or maybe even help gather an understanding of the negatives that these ideologies foster. I truly hope you guys are able to get your lives onto a better, more positive track. To any parents watching this video, the internet is not safe. Roblox is especially not safe. In the words of Roblox's CEO, David Baszucki himself, if you're not comfortable, don't let your kids be on Roblox. Clearly, on this platform, moderation is not a priority. A platform that is often labeled as a children's game is not safe for children. Please, keep an eye on your kids. In this video, I've shown you how quickly harmless roleplay can turn into something much more sinister. From the American Valkist Party, which was pretty much just roleplay, to the Patriot Imperium and its campaign of spreading a dangerous ideology, alongside its reckless actions. This will most likely be the final video I make regarding extremism on Roblox. The majority of what needs to be said has been said, and it's already enough of a risk on its own to even talk about it. This video was many months in the making. I even learned how to use Blender just for this video. So if you want to help me out, because I doubt YouTube's going to let me monetize this video, I ask you to check out my Patreon. And thank you to the current Patreon supporters, it means the world. Thank you so much for watching this video. I encourage you to practice safety when browsing the internet. And remember, you are loved. Goodbye.